VR is more immersive than ever, more physical, more realistic. So why can't it create something as timeless as Tetris? In the vast landscape of digital entertainment, some games stand as timeless monuments. One, a simple cascade of falling blocks, a dance of pure logic and spatial reasoning. Yet, in another realm, a different kind of digital world unfolds, promising ultimate immersion. One, a masterclass in elegant design. The other, a symphony of complex interactions. Tetris was simple. VR isn't. And that's where our story begins. We often seek the next big thing, the ultimate immersive experience in gaming. But what if true genius lies not in complexity, but in elegant simplicity? Tetris, a game born from a single idea, captivated the world with its profound simplicity. Its rules are instantly understood, yet its mastery is a lifelong pursuit. Every action has immediate, clear feedback, creating a perfect balance. Players effortlessly enter a flow state, where time seems to disappear. The game offers infinite mastery, always challenging, never truly conquered. Its elegance lies in its constraints, forcing creativity within a simple framework. No complex tutorials, no overwhelming menus, just pure, unadulterated play. This simplicity is its strength, allowing it to transcend generations and platforms. Now let's turn to VR, a technology that promises to redefine gaming as we know it. Its core appeal lies in unparalleled immersion, transporting us to new realities. The physicality of interaction, the feeling of truly being there, is revolutionary. VR strives for realism, to blur the lines between the virtual and the actual. From intricate simulations to fantastical adventures, VR offers diverse experiences. It promises a future where games are not just played, but truly lived. However, this pursuit of realism and immersion often comes at a cost. VR experiences can demand significant cognitive load from players. The physical friction of headsets, controllers, and limited movement space breaks the flow. Many VR games suffer from over-design, adding layers of complexity. Unlike Tetris, where every element serves a clear purpose, VR can feel bloated. The constant need to manage virtual inventory or complex controls disrupts immersion. This leads to a fragmented experience, far from the seamless flow of Tetris. It's a fundamental misunderstanding. Complexity does not automatically equate to depth. Tetris proves that a simple system can lead to profound, endless mastery. Conversely, a complex system can lead to early fatigue and superficial engagement. VR often adds mechanics for the sake of realism, not necessarily for deeper meaning. The pursuit of immersion can overshadow the elegance of game design. We confuse a rich experience with a truly deep, rewarding one. VR excels at delivering wow moments, first-time experiences that amaze. But these experiences, however spectacular, often fade over time. Compare that to the enduring satisfaction of Tetris mastery. The slow, deliberate placement of blocks, the perfect line clear, is timeless. Mastery provides a deeper, more lasting sense of accomplishment. It's the difference between a fleeting spectacle and a profound skill. So, what is the real problem facing VR in its quest for a classic? VR wants to feel real, to replicate our physical world with fidelity. But Tetris wanted to be perfect, a self-contained universe of elegant rules. It's a fundamental difference in philosophy, a divergence in design goals. If VR truly wants to create its own timeless classic, it must learn a crucial lesson. It must learn to embrace the power of simplicity. Tetris never tried to impress you. It didn't simulate reality. It didn't promise immersion. It didn't sell a world. It sold a system, and that system was so clean, so precise, so perfectly balanced that it became infinite. Every block that falls in Tetris creates a decision. Not a cinematic moment, not a spectacle, a decision. Rotate, place, adjust. The feedback is instant. The consequences are clear. The responsibility is yours. There's no friction between thought and action. That frictionless loop is what creates flow. Flow isn't about immersion, it's about rhythm. It's about the brain recognizing a pattern, mastering it, and then being challenged just enough to stay engaged. Tetris lives in that exact psychological sweet spot. It minimizes cognitive noise. The screen is readable in a glance. The objective is constant. The rules never change. Complexity emerges from interaction, not from added systems. Now look at VR. VR promises presence. It promises that you are not observing the system. You are inside it. But being inside something changes the cost of interaction. In Tetris, moving a piece requires a button press. In VR, interacting often requires your entire body. You reach, you turn, you crouch, you manage space. That embodiment feels powerful at first, but embodiment is energy, and energy is finite. The more a system demands physically, the less sustainable it becomes over time. Tetris can be played for hours without physical strain. Many VR games cannot. That changes replayability, and replayability is where classics are born. There's another issue. VR design often equates realism with depth. More physics, more interactive objects, more gestures. But depth doesn't come from how many mechanics exist. Depth comes from how elegantly they interact. In Tetris, 4 inputs create endless variation. In many VR games, dozens of inputs create shallow loops. Why? Because cognitive load increases. The brain must track hand position, spatial orientation, object weight, environmental awareness, and sometimes UI elements layered on top of all that. That load interrupts flow. Flow requires clarity. VR often introduces noise, visual noise, mechanical noise, physical noise. Even menu navigation in VR can break rhythm. Even small delays between intention and execution disrupt the loop. Tetris has almost zero delay between thought and action. That immediacy creates addiction. Addiction isn't about spectacle. It's about rhythm. And rhythm thrives on simplicity. There's also something deeper happening. Tetris is abstract. It doesn't simulate real life. Because of that, it doesn't compete with reality. VR tries to simulate reality. And reality is messy. Reality includes friction, fatigue, imbalance, unpredictability. When VR imports those traits into game design, it also imports their limitations. Sometimes friction enhances immersion, but too much friction reduces mastery. And mastery is what keeps players coming back. A timeless game is not defined by how impressive it looks. It is defined by how long it remains engaging. Tetris remains engaging decades later because its core loop is mathematically tight. It removes everything unnecessary. No story clutter, no mechanical bloat, no artificial complexity, just system purity. VR as a medium is still fascinated with showing what it can do. Hand tracking, physics simulation, environmental interaction. But showing capability is not the same as creating elegance. Sometimes restraint is harder than innovation. Removing mechanics requires confidence. Simplicity requires discipline. And that might be VR's greatest challenge. Not technological limitation, not hardware adoption, but design restraint. If VR wants its own Tetris, it must stop asking, what else can we add? And start asking, what can we remove? Because timeless design is subtraction, not accumulation. The paradox is clear. VR feels revolutionary. Tetris feels primitive. Yet one created a temporary sensation, and the other created a permanent standard. That doesn't mean VR is doomed. It means VR is still searching for its elegant core. The mechanics so pure, so balanced, so endlessly replayable, that technology disappears. Because when design is perfect, you stop noticing the medium. You only notice the system. Tetris achieved that. VR hasn't yet, but it could. The moment VR stops trying to simulate the world and starts trying to refine a system, that's when it might finally create something timeless. Until then, immersion will impress us, but simplicity will outlast us.